Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and thank you for another and welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. I was thinking about my guest helped me fix my headset problem that I had yesterday, and I was thinking about thanking her at some point. So sorry I screwed that up. I want to give a shout out to Jeremy Hurt, who did this T-shirt for us, but also you'll know him as the CEO of Red Bike Delivery and all the great things he's doing in that space. Plus, you might not know that he was the person that did the beat and the video for the intro. So thank you very much, Jeremy Hurt, and hope to see you really soon. Now, my guest, I have to start out calling you Dr. Fortin, but I know you don't mind if I call you Lisa, but that's all right?
That's good.
Okay, I don't want anyone upset with me that I wasn't respectful to you. So any shout outs you want to give today?
Yeah, I'd love to send a shout out to my husband, Lance, actually, because without him, he's been my stone. He's actually pushed me farther in life than I could have imagined originally and kind of held our family, 4 kids, myself and him, all together through all of our training and everything to get us to where we are. So just tons of respect for him and love for him. So shout out to my husband.
And he was on the show, a few weeks ago, I think, or a month ago. So, yeah, I think you guys are cool. So let's get into you a little bit. Where were you born and raised, and where'd you go to school and all that?
So I was born in Royal Oak, Beaumont Hospital, Michigan. Lived just a short bit of my elementary years down there in the city. And then my parents wanted to escape the city, so they moved us up to a tiny little one-stoplight town of about 3,000 people called Mansalona. So I was raised really that way, on 40 acres, horses and chickens and the whole bit. And then from there, I went to college to get a biotechnology degree. I thought I'd work in a crime lab originally. And then, so did really well in undergraduate, got a 4.0. And when I went to the State Police Crime Lab, in my senior year to investigate what I thought I would love to do, was completely different than I had anticipated. So had a quick career change and thought, what could I do now? And ended up, thinking that medicine was probably the right thing for me. I really have, a big heart. I love to have contribution in my community and to help people. Ended up, it takes a year to apply to medical school, actually. So deciding in my senior year was a late decision. I did a year then of neurosurgery research and became a published researcher as I was applying for medical school and getting accepted, which was fascinating. I was involved in a certain type of brain tumor and the research with that. Since they knew, the neurosurgeon I worked with and the neurologist, that I was going into medicine anyway, they brought me to do rounds with them. I got to do some surgery work where they were waking up people, and I was helping them about the motor strip and things to protect the brain when they were removing tumors. Just a fascinating experiment, kind of confirming that medicine was where I wanted to end up. And then I did medical school at Wayne State University in Detroit, and saw a lot, obviously, through that system. I ended up doing my residency in radiology, actually. This is kind of what they consider the doctor's doctor in a way. But for me, since my first love was investigational work, I thought, this is great. I can kind of combine detective work about the human body and also just learn so much about how we're capable of regeneration. So it's a 5-year residency. I did a 1-year fellowship at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, which is a Harvard hospital in Boston. And then there I learned some pretty advanced techniques like cryoablation, radiofrequency ablation, and microwave ablation of tumors, and really honed my interventional skills as an interventionalist. So I did both general diagnostic radiology and interventional work at the same time. And then ended up moving to Petoskey, Michigan, which is where I had my first radiology career job. I did that for 6 years and became chief of radiology in 2017. which is also the same year that we opened up our regenerative medicine clinic called ReYouvenate. So that was a long time in the making, actually. My husband and I have lived the lifestyle of this for a long time, and we're often told by family and friends, you guys have to open up your own clinic. You have a lot of knowledge in medicine that not everybody does. And you've done a lot of self-experiments and learned just a lot outside of the traditional schooling that I had received. And the reason we did is we had both our own health issues. So it's probably a good time to stop and talk about life also that happens during schooling and training and all of that. So we were married. Go ahead.
Can I give you a breath for a second?
Yeah.
First of all, a shout out to Wayne State, because I went there right before COVID started, and I toured this like incubator that they have where they're dealing with medicine, and they have like these little pens that can detect and zap a tumor. You're going to teach me a lot more in a minute. And they're working on the most amazing things in this lab. I was blown away. And the whole Henry Ford health system, I think also from at least the research perspective and what they're doing with technology was amazing to me. So kudos to you to being in all that, in the middle of all that.
Yeah, Henry Ford was a big part. I did actually that year of neurosurgery research at Henry Ford, and then did medical school and came back to Henry Ford for residency for 5 years. But yeah, you're right. And as far as what they have, I mean, when I was there for neurosurgery research, we would map with an MRI, the tumor ahead of time with this thing called like the Halo device. And then when they were in surgery, they would put it back on. And the surgeon's tools that they were used were linked via GPS to kind of the images in 3D time. So we would be, they would be probing into the brain, and the MRI would be scanning towards the tumor as we're going in. I mean, it's just fascinating technology that they have.
That is amazing. And then the other thing is, my daughter, she just graduated from MSU in her bachelor's in genetics. And her career path, she wants to go a similar career path as what you're doing. So she's still on track for that. But she's going to work at Cedars-Sinai for a little bit in Los Angeles. And one thing about the career that you picked, I've met a lot of people that say that's what they want to do. I've met very few people who ever made it through that process, though. I think sometimes kids sort the salary of what you could be when you grow up and see that number that's next to an interventional radiologist, and it's a big number. And I don't want to go into that with you, but
that was a big step to leave that comfortable career and kind of go on our own and put all that, that we had made into developing a clinic. So yeah. It's definitely a labor of love.
So I'm very proud to have you on the show. I think it's cool that I get to talk to people like you, and especially someone that's accomplished this. And you haven't even told me all the ups and downs you had yet. So let's go back to that.
Yeah. So, life happens through training and through your life. My husband and I were married in our second year of medical school. Then we had 3 of our children during residency, during the 5-year residency at Henry Ford. And there I've always been sort of a leader, not by choice, but by default in a way. So I was chief resident there too. And then we moved to Boston, but my husband's Canadian. So when we were applying for fellowship, 3 years prior to fellowship, we also applied for his citizenship so that he and the kids would be able to come with me. The 3 years came and went, and he still did not have his citizenship. So we had to kind of come across and stay put in Boston for 6 months until it finally came through. And then that year in Boston was pretty tough on us. We had 3 kids, no support, and I was working about 70, if not more, hours a week. And during my fellowship, needless to say, having done all of that, and I was pregnant during the fellowship with our 4th. So having all of that, both of our health suffered. So through what I would just say was our stress level and our load level, our physical health started to deteriorate. And that's really when I myself kind of, said, well, if I'm not going to be healthy and, vibrant for my children, then why am I putting so much into this career? Like it was a career life balance moment for us. And my husband's health was really suffering at that time. So that was sort of the start of where we are today, because we both really didn't get great help with our health through the traditional system. He had a lot of gut issues. I just had chronic fatigue, what I called mommy brain, brain fog. I hadn't slept through a night probably in 7 years by this time with all the kids and waking, breastfeeding, waking up during the night with them, and then just having a real bad schedule of residency in general. So I ended up with about 4 pages of food allergies. I had leaky gut and all these toxins kind of just leaking in, wreaking havoc on me. And when I finally sorted all of this out, I thought, hey, I'm going to take a look and see where I am on a cellular level. And so there are a number of tests you can do to see how healthy are your cells. Some of them are called the Telomere Test. Now they have much fancier tests, but when I tested my telomeres to get my cellular age, I was 37 at the time. And when my test came back, I was actually at the first percentile, the worst of the worst. Cellularly, I was 59. And although on the outside, physically, I looked like my health was fairly maintained, other than some face rashes that I had been dealing with, nobody could really tell that I was suffering that badly. My cellular age showed all the signs of stress. So the worst of the worst, the first percentile. And then, it was a big wake-up call for me. I have in my family, I have cancer, I have autoimmune disease, heart disease, stroke, pretty much you name it, we've got it, in my genes. But at this time, I felt not defeated by anything, but more empowered and thinking, okay, I'm only 37. I realized that if I keep this up in about 5 years, I'd probably see an autoimmune disaster. Things would really start falling apart. But for now, my body's holding it together somehow. And that was empowering for me to be able to make changes in my life. And so I made a lot of changes, a lot around stress management, a lot of work-life balance issues, and then repeated that test a year and a half after my initial test, and was about within 7 years of myself now. So I always joke that every year I celebrate becoming a year younger at the cellular level rather than.
Oh, nice.
And it's possible, I think that finding out where you are in your health is more empowering than anything, and changing those thoughts, and I often say to my patients that come with chronic pain, they feel very defeated. I actually just tell them, you should thank your body that your knee hurts, because if it didn't give you these signals, you would never do anything about it.
Yeah, 100%. We talk about that a lot in the show, especially like when we talk about happiness and sadness at the end, about that lack of signals or that lack of information really puts you at a disadvantage. And I want to go on a small tangent here for a second. I'm going to speak to all you men, but I need help with this too. We don't go to the hospital. We don't go to the doctor. We don't go get our checkups. We don't do the things that we're supposed to do. I am so bad at it. I haven't been in so many years. And I'm going to make a commitment right now to my wife and family and my friends that I'm going to do something about that. So I'm looking for someone to help me hold me accountable to that. And the rest of you men start doing something too. Not everybody for that matter, but I know men are sometimes the worst at this. We're idiots is what I think. So sorry for the tangent. So how does this all fit in with ReYouvenate? Is it, yeah, please.
Yeah, so ReYouvenate is sort of born out of all the lessons my husband and I had learned in all the medical technologies. So it is a regenerative medicine clinic, but I really focus on cellular health. And the theory that I hold with medicine now is that if we can optimize the health of our cells, and the cells make up tissues, which make up organs, systems in the being. If we can start at that base level and really optimize how our cells are functioning, then everything else could be optimized in our health. And the really neat thing about it is that our cells are already pre-programmed. If you think of them like little computers, they have all the programs to run for repair, regeneration, toxin management. I mean, they are efficient little things. It really depends on how efficient can they be by what sort of environment we put them in and what sort of nutrients or substrates we give them to carry out their job. So we have a huge focus on cellular health, repairing from the inside out rather than sort of a Band-Aid cover up symptoms approach. And we combine that with these really advanced regenerative medicines.
Can you go back one little bit?
Yeah.
cover-up systems approach. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I want to talk about that later.
Okay. A Band-Aid approach, I call it, where we just, if you've got pain, I'm going to give you a muscle relaxer and an opioid and, come see me in 2 weeks type thing. No, what we really need to figure out, why do you have inflammation and why do you have that underlying pain to begin with? We want to prevent that from recurring over and over in your life type thing. So combining kind of that inside out approach with these advanced regenerative techniques. So we do some things like platelet-rich plasma and exosome therapy. Exosomes are signaling molecules of stem cells. So I do a lot of ultrasound guided procedures, joint injections, and other things. But at the same time, I always support that with advanced medical technologies, I guess you might call them, like pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, cold laser therapies. We do shockwave therapies, which are actually just acoustic sound waves. It sounds a little scarier than it is. I often make that equivalent to like a needleless PRP injection or a platelet-rich plasma injection. We can do it without needles now. So it's really patient dependent on what kind of therapies we do, but I do stack a lot of things so I can get them to their goal as fast as possible. And then once we get to their goal, we sort of say, now we need to get to you to prevent this again in the future. So then we start really doing a deeper dive in their health and their biomechanics and their posture and alignment, and figure out what's the underlying cause, what's going on here. And we do actually a lot of neuromuscular retraining. So for people with chronic pain, there's a way to tap into the brain, change the inputs going into the brain, which will change the output and reprogram those.
Yeah. So in that whole time, I'm going back to the health of the cells and that everything's made up of our cells. Mm-hmm. And that when you were talking about, like, I was almost thinking the quality of the component is there. It's just not in the right environment. And at first I thought you were going to go, just the cells are healthy. You just got to keep them healthy or whatever. But it is a systems approach still. And mm-hmm. It's more because you had also said the environment that we put them in and the
nutrients
the nutrients that we give them. I had written food because I got caught up when you said the cover-up systems approach. And I'm so fascinated by this. I have 1,000 questions. What I really want to understand, the acoustic sound waves that you said, mm-hmm. you talked about that, and you said it was like a needleless injection. Mm-hmm. Can you just describe that a little bit more? Like, are you making the sound wave or the cell do something and then it produces what you wanted to inject in the first place?
In a way, yeah. So Let's take an example to explain it, like a meniscal tear. So most of us, if we're get an MRI, we're diagnosed with a meniscal tear, we'll go see the orthopedic surgeon who will say, yes, either they'll try physical therapy or something conservative, or they'll say, you need to get a scope. You need to get this cleaned out, which what cleaned out means is a meniscectomy. So that's a partial removal of that meniscus or that cushioning in the joint space. And for me, I try to avoid surgery as much as possible. I think that if you can keep your parts, it's best. And parts wear out. So, 10 years on average of a joint prosthesis or a joint replacement, we can start to see loosening on the x-ray. So these aren't permanent fixes. And especially for people who are in their 40s or 50s, you really got to think about how is this going to set me up for future surgeries and future issues with the knee. So for the meniscus, meniscal tear, we can direct these sound waves to the meniscus and get to the level of the meniscus, and it induces changes at that cellular level, which will initiate repair and kind of bump up the cellular repair mechanisms of the cell. And for meniscus, it's relatively avascular. It doesn't have a good blood supply. And the only way our body has the highway of delivering healing factors is through the blood. So things like tendons or the meniscus that have a poor blood supply, it's really quite difficult to get them to heal in a timely manner. Most people will give up and say, just give me the surgery then. So this accelerates healing. And when we combine it with some of our other things like the cold laser therapy, the new word for this is photobiomodulation, which is a fancy word for photo like photons of light, bio like biology, modulation, making change. So making change in biology with light. But we can make blood flow increase to those areas. We can stimulate lymphatics and get them draining easier. We initiate the cellular repair mechanisms with the sound wave. So when I combine therapies, that's what I do, is sort of take the best of what all these things have to offer, combine them, and get people to heal at a much quicker rate. And typically it's about 70% quicker than kind of rest in NSAIDs, or, those are Tylenol, Advil, ibuprofen, that sort of thing alone. And the healing is not only quicker, but more complete, because we've allowed the nutrients and other things to get to the spaces that they need to be.
So this is so fascinating, and it seems like really, what do I want to say, science fiction, right? Because it seems way out there from what, cut your knee or scope your knee. My dad had a bad knee, and we went through all of these processes, and you can see that it's going to still be a problem as he moves forward in his age. And what does traditional medicine think about what you're doing? Is this an acceptable practice that's growing everywhere, or are you a pioneer, or both maybe?
Yeah, I think that more and more in the United States, it's coming on board. A lot of my clients will go to other people, and when they say I'm telling them what I'm doing at your clinic, they're very interested, And some of them have said, this is, more the way of the future. She's just ahead of the game in this arena. But, in European countries, my mentor for sound wave therapy is from the UK, and he's just world renowned. He's very good. Olympic level athlete, takes care of Olympic level athletes. And when I asked him, is there any indication, say, for a meniscal tear, that I couldn't offer sound wave therapy over surgery? And I said, I know if the meniscus is flipped or displaced, it would be hard, And he said, are you still doing surgeries for meniscal tears in the US? And that was just a stopper for me. I said, of course we are, a lot. And he said, well, let me send you some literature. And he sent me some papers and summaries and things. And he said there are only 2 indications in the UK for surgery for meniscal tear. 1, if it's completely locked and the person can't move their knee, or 2, if it's so painful, it's excruciating and they can't function. And that's it. So I think that we're behind the ball in a lot of recent advances in medicine. And I've been in a hospital system. It took us 6 months to get a picture hung on the wall with all the forms we had to fill out and all the red tape we had to get through. And I think that's part of the joy of having my own clinic, is that I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always going to conferences. I'm always checking out new technology. I've got the biotech background, so I'm really diving into the research, making sure it's reputable and it's safe, it's effective. And I can make change in a week. I can get some equipment and start it next week. I think that that has really freed me up in what I can offer, and staying kind of at the far end of what we have to offer in medicine.
So I was going to ask you about that when you were talking about the life and work balance, and then you start your own clinic. Now you're also a business person on top of all the other responsibilities that maybe you didn't have to do at the business side at the hospital, but you had the bureaucratic side. Was that the big part of it, or was it also the things that you were doing? Like, if you got to do surgery on me, there's a whole bunch of different things that I have to do, you have to do, we have to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Is your process quicker or less time for you, or is it more time for you because you're doing it at maybe a different pace than surgery? Surgery is pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So is it multiple treatments? And
I would say on average, if somebody comes to me with chronic pain, this is something that's been there more than 6 months, a lot of people have 10, 20 years of pain. That's going to take a little bit longer than somebody who just sprained their ankle or something along those lines. But on average, most people in the first 3 sessions with us, which we start them out at usually 2 times a week, most people in the first 3 sessions are feeling a difference for the better. And, a lot of people within 3 weeks are kind of done. And then sometimes they'll go on to a maintenance program. But we can get quite a bit of significant improvement in pain reduction and range of motion for these chronic pain patients in the first 3 weeks. It's a different type of medicine. I'm not sure how to explain it any other way. Our clients are excited to come into the clinic. We get to know them because they do come back more than once. It's a very relaxed environment. I mean, we've gone so far as to take the blue light spectrum out of the lights here. We have negative EMF canceling devices, so it's a very healing environment. The music we play is all selected for the frequencies that are in that. So it's a whole new experience. It's not like you don't feel that you're walking into a doctor's office. It feels much more like a healing environment. And as far as work-life balance, I work hard at this job, and to put it all together and to grow it has been a huge commitment for me. And the business aspect of it, I wasn't ready for all of that. I had done chief resident and I had done chief of radiology, a little bit of business, but that wasn't really business as far as the entrepreneur aspect of it. So it's been exciting. I've had to go back to the books and learn a lot about myself and my growth abilities. But at the same time, I don't have weekends. I don't work holidays. I feel like I have freed up time in my schedule for myself and my family. So it's a good work-life balance for me.
Yeah. So
I'm to the pager.
And you're what?
I'm no longer tied to a pager. I think I've got PTSD from one of those.
Yeah. Did you, when you were in the traditional setting, or not your clinic, I'll just say it that way, were you frustrated by some of the things that you had to do, like the surgery for the example, or prescribing an opioid or whatever? Did that whole process also, was that a cause of stress as well?
Yeah.
Or anxiety?
I think that, and this ties into a little bit about happiness that I was going to bring up later, but I really believe that we lose happiness when there's a big discrepancy between our current self and our potential self. And I felt that's where my potential self was to be here where I am now, and my current self was held here. And, I got a lot of grief from people that were family friends about the career change. Because, let's face it, like you said, radiology is lucrative. I was at the top of my game in radiology. I was making a lot of money. We were comfortable, and my kids would have been comfortable. But that's the difference. Was I truly happy in what I was doing? I was good at it. I did help people, but every time I injected steroids, I thought, am I further causing, more degeneration in this joint for a short-term gain? And I really decided one day I would love to just change it to my needle to something that could potentially degenerate joints to what could regenerate joints, and get more in line with my personal philosophies and my beliefs, and provide medicine to people in that manner. And really I'm grateful every day I have to drive by the hospital to get to where I work. I'm grateful every day, that I'm no longer stuck in that system. And so, yeah, it's been a great experience to make that change. And it was difficult towards the end, especially to continue to do that type of medicine when it really wasn't in my heart that was the best thing for patients.
I hope we still come back to happiness, because I love what you just described there, and I want to get into that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But that's amazing to me. I'm going to switch subjects just a little bit. I'm shifting just a small amount, though. The pharmaceuticals, like every time I see anything about the Cellular family or the Purdue pharmaceutical, I just get very upset about it, and I get in Facebook fights and Twitter, whatever those fights are called, and all that, and people are, well, there's no alternative to pain, you don't understand chronic pain, and if they take these away, then people aren't going to have that. But there is an alternative, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's lots of alternatives, actually, I think.
Yeah. We actually started a documentary which is not finished yet, but we've got a lot of the raw footage. It's called Search for Relief, and it was about the opioid crisis. We took 3 people who were on opioids long-term and put them through our treatments, our sessions, and just kind of did an interview at the beginning with them, middle and end of this little course, just to see where they were. Everybody responded well. The most striking case I'll share, she was 19-year-old who suffered her first seizure and got in a car accident, and her little blue car kind of wrapped around a tree. So she shattered her tibia, the shin bone, and on the same foot had a fractured dislocation of her foot with a large gaping wound, and her foot was barely hanging on. So they brought her to surgery and they repaired all of this. And then it was 3 years later that I first was introduced to her. In those 3 years, she had 5 surgeries. She was signed up or already signed up for her 6th surgery to just try to break up some scar tissue because she had pretty much zero range of motion in her ankle. So you can't squat, you can't run. If you imagine your ankles can't do a lot of functions. They told her she would never run again. She would never jump on a trampoline again. And she's in her young 20s, So she was an avid soccer player before, very active girl, and just fell into a pretty good depression. When she came to me, she was on 23 different medications for pain, for depression, for anxiety, for sleep. I mean, you name it, she was on it. And she woke up every morning feeling, how can I face this day? There's just so much pain. She could work or walk about 5 hours top. That was it. And she pretty much was just kind of at rock bottom for her. And then she went through our sessions. She stayed with us for a week at a time for 2 weeks. And when we followed up with her at her final interview, she was off of all medications, just doing medical marijuana. She could jump on the trampoline with my kids. She went hiking in North Carolina. I mean, she's pretty much she said, I wake up now and the first thing on my mind is, what am I going to accomplish this day? It's not how am I going to get through this day. So, that is just one of many success stories. And I'm not a bragger. I'm really quite humble, actually. But just to have this effect, or know that people in their bodies at these levels, it just keeps me going. It fuels my fire. And it's just remarkable. I had the pleasure of meeting her mother, who was kind of in tears when we met, and just thank you. But it's like, your daughter is remarkable. She's actually a beautiful singer, and she'll do really good in life. She's got her life back.
I'm actually in tears a little bit too. I'm trying to fight them back. So number one, I didn't think you came across as bragging at all. You are doing something super significant here, and the story needs to be told. So from my perspective and what I heard you saying, it wasn't like, oh, because I did this, she was all that. You didn't say that at any time. You said this treatment, this way of doing things did that, and I didn't hear any bragging at all. So I can't wait to see the documentary, because I think these stories do need to be told, because there's so many paths to addiction and surgeries and injuries like this. That young lady was probably following a path that my daughter followed in a whole different way, but they were going to the same destination. And I think that's what made me tear up, is you took that out of the equation. So awesome. Very awesome.
It's possible. That's why I think it's so important to get the message out there, and to be part of the system that educates people that they do have a choice. My hashtag is always know your options. Know that you do have options, one, and then know what they are. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, do you also, you look at the whole person though too, I think, right? You take a holistic approach. Do you help with diet? Do you help with, drinking more water instead of cola and all these things? Does that help with your treatment? Yeah.
It's quite fascinating. What I do mostly is educate for empowerment. So I don't do, I'm a certified health coach too. I went back to learn about nutrition because we just don't learn that much in medicine. So I do we offer people ways to reduce systemic inflammation, which contributes to their symptoms. We talk to them about health things that we think are pertinent. One of my favorite things, and a lot of people will come to me and say, I just can't lose weight. And I'll say, listen, I'm not a weight loss physician, but I'm all about metabolic health. And I think if we can get your metabolic health better, the weight will just come off. So we do a lot that way. There is one thing that I use that I'll share that's neat. There's one, I don't like calling diet, but I can't think of another term for this. So there's one diet called Prolon. Prolon, fasting mimicking diet, and this actually has a patent for human longevity. So it's gone through so many clinical trials. Walter Longo is the PhD that kind of developed this over 2 decades of work or more. And when you do this, it's a very minimal commitment, 5 days out of the month for 3 months in a row. And you get so many metabolic health benefits from it, reducing blood pressure and cholesterol, C-reactive protein, which is a marker of inflammation. People lose visceral abdominal fat, which means the fat around our organs, the belly fat. That's the most inflammatory, dangerous fat that we can carry. But at the same time, you preserve muscle mass. So you think you're fasting, I'm just going to melt away. No, it's tailored the micronutrients and macronutrients specifically to save the muscle mass and just kind of attack that inflammatory fat. They're just, you get a boost of your own natural stem cells. You recycle all these old pro-inflammatory cells and get rid of them. There's a whole host of things that go along with that. So I just, when I talk to people about their health, I really want people to understand that, and it's funny. So we can understand that I can take, let's say, a Tylenol, and I know that's going to go into my body, it's going to get into my bloodstream, and it's going to have effect at the cellular level. So I'm going to reduce pain and I'm going to reduce inflammation. It's changing my biology when I take that. But people won't put the thought in their head that this hot dog that I'm going to eat is going to have a detrimental effect on my biology. It's much bigger than a Tylenol. I mean, like it. And so, I think that one of our downfalls as American society and elsewhere, I'm sure, but is that when we choose our food, we're choosing it for less than 1% of our digestive tract, which is our tongue. We're just choosing it for flavor and joy, and that's it. And we're not thinking about how is this going to be incorporated into my body? How is this going to, is it going to fuel me, or is it going to cause me to, be inflamed and kind of cause pain? People are shocked to learn, like, oh, you mean that wine I drink every night is actually causing me pain and inflammation? So
hey, it was all okay until you started messing with the wine. You can't mess with the
wine. Dry farm wines I'll shout out to. That's a good one. Wine. Those are less inflammatory. So if you're going to choose wine, choose wisely.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
But this is all the study of epigenetics, how our environment affects our cells at a cellular level. And, like I was telling you at the beginning, my family carries all of these genes for arthritis and cancer and stroke and heart disease and autoimmunity. But the empowering thing is to know that I have control of those switches. Am I going to switch them on or leave them turned off? And, I'm really on a quest to leave them off for as long as I can. If they ever get turned on, I don't think they will.
I am so anti-hot dog. It's funny that you keep that one. If anybody was sitting behind me right now, they'd be, yes, Jerry won't even touch a hot dog. So I love the way you're thinking and what you're talking about. I think, is there anything that we should also be talking about? Is there anything more you wanted to add before I get into your every damn day?
No, I think that, there's a really neat thing to think about in medicine. And we all know that our skin cells, they shed all the time and we're growing new skin, that sort of thing. Our hair kind of goes in cycles, falls out and renews like this. Well, that's actually happening. Every cell of our body is going through a renewal cycle like this. Like our knee joint, the distal femur and the cartilage on that is supposed to renew every 6 months. If it stops that continual renew cycle, then we start getting into degradation or arthritis. It starts breaking down faster than it's renewing. But this is going on everywhere in our body, and it takes about 5 or 6 years before you are a whole new you. So I always tell people the choices that you're making today, your future self can thank you for. So there is a potential to be a healthier version of you. You've just got to start today for 5 or 6 years down the road. And you have those cells which are renewing, better substrates to renew with. There's you are what you eat, kind of from my grandma. Yeah. In a way, it becomes truth. I mean, we have to give our bodies the nutrients and the substrates that they need to renew and to be able to repair and to be able to carry out these functions and make a healthier version of ourselves in the future.
So I took up skateboarding again. I did it when I was a kid. Then I took it up again when I was about 45 years old, I would say, with my son. And people would ask me how I could still be so young and do that and all the time. And my theory was that every time I fell and I bled, it was good for my body to still be going through that process. That as we grow older, we try not to get in harm's way like that, and we stop getting the nicks and the cuts and the bleeding. Did I have any credibility in my hypothesis at all?
I think so. We think of these things called hormetic stressors, where you stress the body a little bit so it becomes more resilient. And if you think of cold immersion, sauna, those heat shock proteins which are produced, all of those are sort of forms of what you're talking about. I don't know if I would really scrape my knees and stuff. But these hormetic stressors that we put ourselves in, they keep those systems active, and they keep the genes upregulated to be able to deal with that and become more resilient.
The paintings up above me up here were done by a man named McFarland, James McFarland, and he owned a hot tub company called Hot Water Works. But he went to Japan and had these cold submersion things that he designed with these guys in Japan and brought it back here. And he swore by what you just said that kept him really healthy for a long, long time.
It does. I've seen remarkable things with people who do cold immersion, or just turn your shower to cold for the last 30 seconds to a minute. You know, that shock of your system is so good for your health.
You know what's so weird? I was going to do that this morning. I wasn't feeling well, and I'm like, I'm going to take a cold last part of my shower, and then I forgot.
Yeah, it's invigorating, almost like a cup of coffee, you know?
Yeah.
Really good.
So what do you do every damn day to push your mission forward besides take on a billion things?
Yeah, I get up and go. So, you know, I think this question, you have to step out of your day-to-day to answer this question, because it's such a routine that I'm in. I think that what I do every day is to make sure that I'm learning. I live 30 minutes from my clinic, so I have university on wheels time that's dedicated to learning. I'm either listening to a podcast or an Audible book or a self-learning thing, or sometimes I'm making my personal calls during that time, but most of the time it's actually learning. So I've got an hour a day of dedicated time to further my education. I choose to be in the present almost all of the time. This is really hard because there's a lot of, you know, people who get stuck in the future planning, in the past, you know, reminiscing or wooing. Being in the present, I think, is one of the keys to both happiness and to being able to continue to do what I do. I celebrate the little things. This is so important. If somebody walks in and say, "Hey, I woke up without pain today," and I would, you know, like 2 days before, they couldn't even sit in my chair to do a consult. They had to get up and walk because they were in so much pain. These little celebrations of mine, they really fuel my fire and keep me going. So I practice gratitude. That's who I am. You know, it was a practice I had to make. I just am grateful for, and I think part of medicine and training in Detroit helped me along with that. There's always a worse scenario than what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, there's always somebody who has something worse, or can you imagine this? You know, just today I was late for work for about 10 minutes because of an accident. And that was it. I just realized how valuable life is. You know, that was a semi versus a minivan, and the minivan driver didn't survive, but the minivan driver just did a U-turn, probably forgot something, did a quick U-turn in the road, and that was it. I value every minute that I'm able to be here and be with my friends and my family and making contribution and growth in this society. So
thank you so much for sharing that. When you said being in the moment, my mind goes to substances all the time, or being in the present, because just people that are using a lot, they can't they're not there for anybody. They're nowhere. And I thought you were going to go kind of there a little bit, but your answer was amazing, because most people would look at you and think, well, you're so busy, you must be planning the future all of the time and doing all of that. And I imagine you do some sort of vision or whatever for the clinic, but you're not stuck in that every single day. Oh, I can't wait till I get this. You're just doing it with what you have. Yeah.
And I did get stuck in that actually during training. My husband and I would always like, after this board exam, after we graduate residency, okay, now, you know, after we get to this point, we were stuck in that because it was very difficult. I mean, you know, to train and to have 3 little ones and working all the time, all that, you can easily get stuck in the rat race of life, and easily get stuck in that and just hope for better in the future. So it was that part of it, I've been there.
When you said you had 3 kids during your residency, and I remember that I complained a little bit about how tough every damn day was to do for 36 days, I got embarrassed.
It's all relative.
We daisy chained the shows together. Yesterday on the show, I had Eric Schertzing, who is the Ingham County Treasurer, and his question for you is, what's the one best thing that you can do to move your community forward?
I think it kind of ties on what we were just talking about, and is growth, contribution, and giving back. I feel like you choose. Not everybody is going to have the same ability to contribute, but everybody has something that can do. Even if it's just going to your local food pantry and volunteering. There's a lot to be said about what you can do if you don't have, I don't have funding, or I don't have this for my big dream, but you can still contribute to your community. And I think, I, with my own children too, this is going to be our future community. I try to always be an example for my community, for my kids, just sort of lead by example. It's hard to go to a physician who doesn't, walk the talk type thing.
Yeah.
So doing that and showing people that, and we always had this kind of better way saying too, along with know your options, showing people that there is a better way. I feel like being a member of the community, being involved in it, and really trying to give back to the community. I can't tell you how many hours of free care we've given through the clinic of people who are like, oh, I'd really like to do this, I just can't afford it. And then I've got a soft spot, and we've helped people out. A lot of people we've either discounted or helped out, and that's part of my gift back to the community as well.
It's just a yes or no question, because I want to keep going fast, because I want to be sensitive to your time. Is your treatment generally more expensive, the same, less expensive, and or is it covered by insurance too?
Yeah, so not covered by insurance, unfortunately. The FDA has not approved everything that we do for every indication. There are some things that people can submit and get covered that are FDA approved for certain indications. I would say that it depends. We have a full range. Some of my therapies are less than a massage than people pay for. And then the regenerative medicine techniques are more pricey. Those, I would say, if you weren't in an insurance model, it's about $1,200 to $1,400 to get a steroid injection in your shoulder. What we offer is much less than that. So I think that if people weren't already putting their dollars towards insurance, so they've already allocated this money towards their insurance pay, so they would like to get something out of that. And I think that's where what gets difficult is not so much the price of it, just they've already put dollars towards their insurance rather than less. So things get tied up. But it's not that pricey overall. And like when you start looking at massage therapy and stuff like that people do for themselves, it's really comparable.
Yeah, and probably if you look at the life cycle, the whole, that knee surgery that you got when you were 40, that exactly. wears out when it's 50, and then it goes again and again and again. Yours kind of sticks, right? It doesn't.
It's the downtime, the lost function of the joint. You have to get out of work and you have to rehab. You don't have to do any of that when you go through our therapies. You just continue to work. You continue to play. So I think there's a trade-off, and really, what we're doing is not trying to do a Band-Aid or not trying to fix a joint temporarily. The changes that we're making are to set them up for future success as well.
Okay. So tomorrow on the show, I have Jazz and Paul. They have a company called Stay Rooted, which they basically raise houseplants and sell them online all over the country. Yes. And what question would you like me to pass to them?
When was it that you first began to look inside to realize that the change necessary for you to make impact had to come from you or within?
So I'm going to turn that on you. When was it for you? They'll be delighted with this. I know it.
So mine was to realize my cellular age was 59 when I was 37. That was my wake up call. And that was yeah, that was frightening a little bit. Although, I had already gone down part of the path of what that might look like, and I didn't like it. And I think that a lot of us are given these wake-up calls, and a lot of us are given challenges in life, and to realize they're happening for us, not to us, is one of the big things also that contributes to your self-growth.
When's the last time you did your cellular age?
When I was 39, so a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. So you don't know what it is today?
No.
Because you might be like 12 by now.
That's right. 25. I'm going to say 25. That's a good age.
25?
Yeah.
All right. Happiness, sadness, joy, hope, or love. You already told us what you were going to talk about. So happiness.
Yes.
I love the way you define that. It's the same way that I think about disappointment. Like if I told you that we'd be done by 3 and it goes to 3:10, you're going to be upset with me. But if I told you we were going to be done at 3:15 and it went till 3:10, you might be happy with me. It's kind of that same satisfaction, I think, or I don't know. Maybe that's my same definition and I've misused connectinal. But do you mind expanding on that a little bit more? Do you raise your gap from time to time and it makes you less happy then? Or
yeah, I think that for me, I'm kind of driven in career path, I guess. So yeah, my happiness has to remain in check by my life, my family, and career balance. I realize that there's so much work to be done in having the impact that I want to in my career, and so much more growth that needs to be done. And sometimes I'll bury my head in this, and then sort of my family will suffer in a way, and that will make me very unhappy. So yeah, I think that I'm continually setting my bar higher. I feel, I went to a conference in Toronto in 2020, and at the end of the conference, they made us choose a word, and that was to be our word for the year. And it was really neat. We actually there were like 300 people there, and we made a big circle at the end and kind of said, this is my word. And we each had a quartz crystal that was gifted to us from the event organizer. And we sort of all kind of put our energy in, these crystals. Then the word I chose was limitless. And I think that we truly are all limitless as beings. And I would never set my ceiling and make it and be happy completely. I'm always going to continue to raise my bar then. Because I do feel like, wow, I've come from a small town of like 3,000 people. I graduated with 79 kids in my class. And who would have ever thought that I would be where I am today? Not even my past self. So I think that, opportunities are endless. I think that we can all be limitless. It's a mind state, and your physical can get on board with your mind. So.
Hope's one of those words, and I'm just so full of hope after talking to you right now. I mean, I think you are inspiring. I think with the work that you're doing, I mean, you're a hero to me and my family for helping with the pain stuff and getting rid of some of the pharmaceutical stuff. I can't believe that I interviewed a rapper in Detroit that brought me to you. How did that happen? That seems so random and I don't know, maybe serendipitous, but it's amazing to me. I guess the power of diversity.
Yes.
So, thank you again very much. I can't wait to share this all over the place. I think this is important. We didn't talk about websites and all that. Put that to the side. I'll go get them all and put them into the comments and all of that in a little bit. Okay. What would you like to take us out with?
Okay. This is my favorite thing, actually, and I saved it. I often tell people that your cells hear every word your brain is thinking. I have to say it one more time because I think it's so important. Your cells hear and they actually respond to every word that your brain is thinking. These could be subconscious thoughts or thoughts. If we are in a state of anxiety, we have to stop and think, then what is my brain thinking? What is my brain doing? So if I feel anxious, or if I have chronic back pain and it's causing my body to feel stress, and I'm thinking about, how am I ever going to get through this day? My body's going to respond in a physiological manner. So my heart rate's going to go up, my cortisol is going to go up, I'm going to get more sugar released into my bloodstream to be ready for fight or flight. This is the sympathetic response that most of us live in all the time. So really, making sure that we set aside time for meditation. And I know people have meditation and they just blow it off. I'll never do that. This is one of the biggest things that you can do for your health is learn how to get into that relaxed parasympathetic state. It might be breath work. It might be yoga. It might be, praying or devotion for people. It could be meditation in the normal sense of meditation. Or there's a lot of devices. If you just feel like you can't get there initially and you need some training to do that, there are devices like the Apollo Neuro or NuCalm, a lot of devices which can get us into this parasympathetic state. We do something at the clinic called Master Reset, and that really puts you into a parasympathetic state. I feel like if I can't get control of people's emotional state in a way or their thinking in a way, I can have a harder time to heal them. And I really realized this the last 2 years or 1.5 years, I guess, with COVID, all the levels of stress and anxiety that were coming through and all these pains that were happening. I felt like, oh my goodness, I have to address stress and anxiety more than I do pain nowadays. Mm-hmm. And it became so important and apparent that, our cells are truly responding to every thought that our brain is saying. So, yeah.
I've been telling people my whole life I can tell my brain to fix something and it heals it for me. And I've believed that, and they've always been naysayers. Now I'm back in the front. I'm in my belief because I do that all the time.
A good book, The Biology of Belief, that sort of, tipped me off by Bruce Lipton. He's a PhD. And Joe Dispenza does wonderful work with this kind of bridging the gap between the physical manifestation and a medicine sense, an MD sense into what our thoughts can do. So those are both really good resources.
I'm just going to throw out Blood Music, which is one of my favorite books, where I can't remember if it was the cells or a virus, but they started talking back. They started playing music at first, and the brain started hearing the music, and then the communication started between the brain and all this other stuff. So
music is actually amazing because the frequencies, our cells have these vibration frequency receptors on their cell membrane. They have receptors called chronophores for light. These interactions with our environment are because we have receptors to interpret the environment we're in and change it into a physical, for our body or a signal for our body. So music is a huge healing potential, with frequencies.
So that TikTok guy that does the sound bowls, he's right. Right? Just listen to him.
I'm not a TikTok person, but yes.
Hey, thank you so very much. I got to get you out of here.
You're welcome.
You are amazing. I appreciate it very much. Everyone, tomorrow at 2, every damn day. And I will see you all later. Thank you.